Let's talk about the political football that is the debt and deficit. We've talked about this piecemeal over the last several weeks because there have been continued examples of Republicans talking about how can we afford all this stuff that Joe Biden wants to do, when there was no question under Trump about how do we afford anything. And the guy exploded the deficit by significantly higher margins than we've seen in a very long time for any president. It's a political football in the sense that Republicans claim to have as a guiding principle fiscal conservatism. Part of that is balanced budgets, meaning you spend less than you take in. They also want to change tax law to take in less. And it's really just sort of a package of trying to restrict government from really doing things. That's really what's at issue with Republicans. Anything they can say to justify government not doing something, not helping people, not being involved in something, they will do it. But then as soon as they want to spend money, the concerns about fiscal conservatism go away. This gets us to 2 days ago on the Neil Cavuto program on Fox News, where James Lankford is not just a Republican senator. He's not just a radical extremist Republican senator. Something about the guy is really creepy. And many of you have written to me about the same thing. And Neil Cavuto, good for him. Every once in a while, Neil Cavuto does this. Neil Cavuto calls out James Lankford and says, where were your new concerns about Joe Biden spending when it was Donald Trump doing that spending? All right, so let's take a look at it. We're going to go piece by piece here.
Now, you might call it socialism, Senator. Democrats say Republicans are fine ones to start lecturing on spending of any sort, since debt also piled up in the Trump administration.
True.
Big packages unpaid for piled up in his administration. That was even before the pandemic.
So Lankford starts shaking his head, and you know he's got something good coming.
Republicans have sort of like a leg to stand on.
Yeah, of course we do. They're going back to the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, saying you cut taxes and you should never cut taxes. You need to raise taxes like we're planning to do, as they're planning this giant tax increase. If you look at what happened in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017, we had a rapid expansion in the number of people getting employed, the number of people actually paying taxes.
Okay, so two things there. Rapid expansion of the number of people employed. Job creation was positive in that early area of the Trump's only term. So there were jobs created at the start of Trump's term at a slower rate than at the end of Barack Obama's second term. That's number one. So while there was job creation, it was slower under Trump than Obama. But number two, the job creation did not accelerate when Trump's tax plan was passed. So Republicans like to just point and say, we passed the tax plan, whatever you want to call it, and jobs continued to be created. The truth is, the job creation did not accelerate. And if you are of the mindset that it was the tax plan of Trump that created jobs, why did job creation slow down after that was passed? The second piece is more people employed than ever. This is the labor participation sort of talking point that they love to do. Remember that the United States is a country whose population keeps growing. So at many times we have a record number of people working and a record number of people not working. It's a very deceptive technique that they will use to their advantage. I don't use it because it's deceptive. Okay, let's continue. Here we go.
Saw an increase in tax revenue happening starting in 2019, 2020. We had the fastest growing economy we've had 50 years.
The deficits piled up, right? And so did the debt. I'm not faulting you for that, Senator. I'm just saying that whatever, when you goose the economy, and that was clear, it helped the economy. My point is that the debt piles up and lecturing on either party's, stance.
So Neil Cavuto's keeping his eye on the ball, and he's saying, you're talking about jobs and you're talking about revenue. Aside from the fact that you're lying about those things, the deficit went up, and that can't be denied.
What is too much money? We're beyond that right now, right?
Well, I get it. Getting back to balance is something that needs to be in the conversation, but.
Okay. So anyway, Neil Cavuto pointing it out, and you're not going to get an answer from James Lankford. This is a really common one. And, the problem I have with this entire debt deficit thing is there's a real conversation to be had. And unfortunately, we can't really have it with these people because they're just operating in fantasy land. The truth about debt and deficit is complicated. A country's national debt is not analogous to a household where, hey, if the income is $5,000 a month and expenditures are $6,000 a month, you're falling behind $1,000 every month. You're either going to start having to charge and take out loans to pay that, on which you pay interest, and you fall further behind. That's how a household thinks. Countries are different. And then so first of all, in terms of what it means to have national debt relative to what does it mean to have household debt, not analogous. Republicans love to simplify along those lines. But more importantly, if a country's economy is continuing to grow, even in evaluating the level of debt, we need to be looking at debt as a percentage of GDP. If you have an economy that's growing at 3% a year and debt that's growing at 2% a year, you're actually reducing the significance of that debt relative to the size of the economy. How frequently do you hear that discussed in these conversations about debt and deficit? And then, of course, lastly, we have to remember that there is debt that is stimulative, and you can increase the deficit. Now I'm talking about the deficit. You can increase the deficit in a way that is economically stimulative, and you can increase the deficit in a way that's not. So, for example, when you consider the multiplier effect of food stamps versus rich people putting money in a savings account, the stimulative impact of food stamps, which they get spent at local businesses, supermarkets, which increases employment, that the economic multiplier there is dramatically higher than just a tax cut for the rich, who mostly save that money because they don't need that money to fund their lifestyle. That's another aspect of debt and deficit, where $1 of deficit is not always the same thing. The question is, what are we getting? What are we financing? Are we financing the richest people just saving a little more money that they don't spend? Or are we financing some social program with a very high multiplier effect? So anyway, we can't really expect them to have that conversation. They don't care to, because this debt deficit thing is just a political football. And for many Democrats, it is as well, just on the opposite side. August 16th is the 16th anniversary of the David Pakman Show. It flew by. It flew by. And we are doing a one-day membership special. I would love for you to take advantage of it. If you would like to be notified about this incredible membership special on August 16th, get a membership. Get on my newsletter at davidpakman.com. And on the 16th, you'll get an email telling you how to sign up for it. If you've been watching the show, you've probably heard me talk about how much I love my Helix mattress. Well, I was really excited to hear that Helix has launched a new company called Allform, which makes premium, customizable sofas and chairs with the same level of quality and comfort that I expect from these guys. And Allform is one of our sponsors today. They're giving you 20% off at allform.com/Pakman. They actually sent me a couch, which I put in my living room at home. It's now my favorite piece of furniture in the house. It took me just minutes to set it up. It's solidly built. It's huge. It's roomy. It has a modern, minimalist design, which I love, but it's also very comfortable. Fabric is soft, clearly very high quality. It has become the focal point of my living room. Their prices are very reasonable. And when you get a new sofa or chair, you get 100 days to decide if you want to keep it. And the best part is everything comes with a lifetime warranty. Stop buying poorly made furniture. Go to customize your own Allform sofa or chair right now and get 20% off your entire order when you get there by going to allform.com/Pakman. I've also put the link right underneath this video.